And welcome everyone to the first episode of season 2 of In the Studio with Brad. And for those of you who are maybe just tuning in for the first time, my name is Bradley K. McDevitt. I am an artist for Goodman Games. I've been working with the company for almost 20 years, and I've done, I would say, probably 500 or more illustrations for the company, which is probably why my hand is usually cramped like this on any given day. Oops, I need to move this picture before I start drawing it. A couple of things get out of the way that will sound familiar to those of you who are tuning back in from last season. We will be doing a drawing that my wife will be putting up the Google Docs link anytime now. If you want to go ahead and fill that out at the end of the season, probably in, I'm guessing maybe mid-January or so, we'll do a drawing and somebody will get an original piece of artwork. I'm not sure what yet, because right now, this is all we got for season 2 so far. It kind of goes from week to week what I'm working on. So there we go. I have been informed by the boss, or rather the art director, that I am allowed to talk as much as I'm able to about this job. And it is for the Shudder Mountain game, which I guess will be of very happy news to some of the people. So I can't think of anything else to say right now. So I am going to start in on the artwork because that's what you all actually tuned in for. If any of you have any questions, please go ahead and holler, and I will be saying other things as I go through the drawing. So let's see. Here we go. I probably should have done a quick Google search and just downloaded some pictures of babies and such for this, but I think I can fake it pretty decently. It's funny. I have this huge archive, like a whole library of artwork, of photographic reference, but most of the time I end up having to just jump on Google because it's so much faster rather than looking through sometimes literally dozens of books hoping to find the right illustration, when I can basically just have Google do it, set up a couple of different parameters, and ta-da. Here we go.
So when you were given this art to do, was there like a specific thing that you were thinking, like inspiration wise, or did they kind of just tell you we want it to look like this?
They basically told me what to do in this case. It was I guess this is called a gob swab or god swab or something like that. Reaching through the walls of this cabin to grab this baby. So this one was pretty straightforward overall. Oh, and to anyone listening that is not new, that is new, if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to pass them along, and I will do my best to answer. I'm not going to make any promises, especially if you ask for the PIN number of my bank card, but you know how it is.
All right, so we have our first redemption of the night. I have added a feature with our channel points for our loyal viewers to have, and one of those is to redeem a random joke or random fact of your choosing.
Okay. So now I just get to brace for impact.
No, you got to come up with it.
Oh, I need to come up with a random fact.
Or random joke.
Random joke. I'm not good with random jokes, actually. Random fact. Random fact. I make awesome garlic bread with cheese. How's that? That comes from way too many years working in a kitchen at a pizza parlor. Another random fact, also from the pizza parlor days that used to drive my manager absolutely crazy. We had a dining area with tables set up. Well, the tables were permanent, the chairs were normal, and I had it down to such a science that I, even working as a kitchen worker, I could put food in the oven, go out, flip all the chairs up, and be back in time to get the sub or whatnot out of the oven in time. Used to drive the boss crazy because he would be like, "Oh, you need to go put the chairs up." It's like, what do you think I'm doing coming back from the front room? Just in time for the timer to go off. Okay.
Joan says you have to bring it to Elkhart next time you come. Bring some of that garlic bread.
Well, unfortunately, Joan, garlic bread does not travel well. It's kind of got to be fresh from the oven or it just turns into goo. But I will do my best. When Joseph found out that making garlic bread was a specialty of mine, he basically threatened to make me have to bring an order of garlic bread to Gen Con the one time. But again, garlic bread doesn't travel well, and I have a feeling a 5-hour drive, it would get pretty worthy. There we go.
Judge Hipmore says that their kitchen is always available.
Ha. Well, all I need is margarine, garlic, a big plate, some oregano, and a hot oven. And about 3 minutes at 415 degrees. So there you go. Dipping sauce not included. There we go. That looks like a good start on the blanket. So here we go. since this is supposed to be kind more of a horror illustration, it's going to be plenty of black in this picture, lots of highlight of strong light source stuff, and I think this pen needs to be refilled. So I will set you to the side. I need something really fine. There we go. I'm hoping next week I can arrange to do a scratchboard piece, even if it translates to not specifically being a Goodman Games piece. So I do have one piece that I know Joseph wanted me to try to do as a scratchboard piece. So maybe that will be my job for next Monday. How does that sound, folks? And I've got the scratchboard. Thank you again, Joan. So, okay, now.
Joan is very excited for the scratchboard. She's like, scratchboard with a bunch of exclamation points.
There we go. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to stick my head in the frame too much there. Oops, point. Sorry. And when you're concentrating more on trying to actually do the drawing, you can't always think in terms of, keeping it in camera. Now, the trick here is going to not over render the baby's skin, because you want to make the baby's skin nice and soft looking. No, come on, hold on. I spontaneously decided that this baby is going to be an Audi. Okay, good. I think how I'm going to do the lighting effects on the baby's skin is probably basically extremely tight light cross hatching.
So I just noticed that Joan has redeemed yet another random Joker fact.
Okay. Random facts. I never actually meant to get into the gaming industry. I had been a gamer for a long time, but actually wanted to get into the magazine illustration business in following in the footsteps of my heroes like uh, Brad Holland, Steve Fabian, and Virgil Finley and Lee Brown Coy. Wasn't really thinking in terms of the finances of at the time, but because I was going to be an art teacher, and I figured I would just do the magazine illustration as kind of like a fun sideline that would occasionally pay for itself. One nice thing, most of those small magazine publishers realized they were never going to make any money either, so one literally basically sent me the money and said, hey, enjoy a pizza on this, because that was about all that I was getting paid enough for. Well, what happened was I was an inveterate doodler. What a shock, And I'm sitting in college at what they call the commuter center for Bowling Green State University. And this big burly guy comes up, asks, are you Brad McDevitt? I was like, yeah, sure. How may I help you? And guy introduced himself as Walter Machinsky from Stellar Games and pointed to my friend Jim Kuhn. It's like, Jim Kuhn says that you draw. And I'm like, yeah. So that is how I got my first job in the gaming industry. I didn't even really stumble into it. It stumbled onto me instead. And 30 years later, ta-da.
So, another question for you. This one comes from your wife, actually. Question for Brad. Who did you study under for a while when you were younger?
Oh, okay. This will be of interest to any older comic book fans. Anyone who follows comics is probably at least vaguely familiar with the name of Craig Russell. Craig Russell is a fairly famous comic book artist who did a lot of work for Marvel and DC in the 70s and 80s and still occasionally does work for them, though he's mostly retired to do just his own stuff. And it turned out that he grew up only about 17 miles from me. Now, the funny thing is, I became aware of Russell's stuff very young when he was doing the Killraven War of the Worlds comic book for Marvel. And of course, I had no way of knowing that we were essentially neighbors. Well, one day, the local paper announced, hometown cartoonist moves home. I'm like, well, this is an odd, headline for the Lisbon Morning Journal. And it's like, oh my God, are you telling me P. Craig Russell and I grew up only 20 miles apart, 17 miles apart? Because he was I never did exactly find out why, but I think maybe just he was tired of living in New York, probably the expenses of living in New York. So he was moving home to his parents for a while. It's not like he didn't have the money to live, because he was still a really hot commodity as an artist. But I think he just wanted to kind of be able to wind it down a little bit. So I sent him a actual letter along with some samples of my artwork, and he was delighted to, we started up a communication. He ended up coming and actually speaking at my high school, and we after I moved out to Bowling Green here, we kind of fell out of touch because he was up living in Kent teaching a 500 level art class at this point, and I was starting my career as a would-be art teacher, which obviously didn't go anywhere. What was fun, but as part of the whole thing, he had given me a copy of his one book called Night Music with a notation, to Brad, keep on doing it, correct. So that was like 1990. No, that was like 1982, 1983, because I think I was a senior in high school when I had him come. Fast forward 10 years to Wizard World in Chicago. I was working out at Game Designers Workshop, which is a now dead game company. And I found out, and a friend of mine's like, hey, I'm living in the area for the moment. Did you want to go to Wizard World? It's like, sure, sounds good. Renew an old acquaintance, get to hang out with all the comic book artist types, hopefully even buy a few comics. But I also saw that P. Craig Russell was going to be one of the guests of honor. Evil plan starts forming. So I dug out my copy of Night Music, the one that he had inscribed, and I take it with me to the convention. So he's sitting there, he's signing comic books. I forget what he was working on at the time. But I like, Mr. Russell, I'm a big fan of yours. Would you mind signing this? He's not even really looking up because, you know how it is, especially if you've been signing for a while, you're just kind of like autopiloting it. Copy of Night Music. Haven't seen one of these in a while. So he flips it open and sees, to Brad, keep doing it correct. And he just, like, his jaw just drops, eyes are kind of bugging. I was like, Brad? Hi, Craig. Long time no see. It was probably kind of mean of me, but at the same time, it was fun. But if any of you really want to see an absolute master of line work and composition, check out his name, or just Google it, P. Craig Russell, or he quite often just goes by Craig Russell these days. He's truly an amazing artist and a pretty nice guy, though he can get a bit grumpy, but can't we all?
Another question for you. Judge
Okay.
Hitmore asks, how many different pens will you use throughout a drawing like this?
I sometimes I don't even bother trying to keep count. It all depends on the density of the line that I want. Like right now, I'm using a 0.8 Winsor Newton because it gives a nice thick line, but one that I can control to make very thin if I so want. There we go. Okay, let me see. Oops, sorry.
Joan asks, what is your most favorite medium?
Oh, pure pen and ink. Though if it comes to color work, I actually have become quite the fan of using Photoshop simply because it allows me the freedom to screw up a little bit. One thing I hate about traditional painting is you basically have to get everything right the first time. And sometimes that can be kind of nerve-wracking, especially if you've gotten used to being able to hit Control-Alt-Z, or if worse comes to worse, just hit revert to the last saved version. There we go.
In that vein, like if you were to paint a piece and it doesn't quite work, or you mess up on something, or you overdo a color, would you essentially have to restart the whole thing over again, or would you try and make that work?
I try and make that work usually. One of the simple sad facts of being a commercial artist is you usually don't have time for things like do-overs. You're always racing the clock, which means and that's another reason why I kind of prefer to do most of my color work on the computer, because it's a lot easier to make corrections of stuff that way than on traditional media. I'm going to try and make this the scariest looking teddy bear possible. Quick art bit for you. When you see me doing stuff like here, if you can see this, like this, to form shading, that is called hatching. Now, if I were to do this as like, that is not shockingly called cross hatching. I liberally use both when I'm drawing. There we go. And here I'm just kind of like filling in some black areas, one, to speed up the process just a fraction, and two, so that I don't get so lost in the act of doing the cross hatching that I lose track of the effect that I'm trying to get. So there we go.
So, Zombie Folly asks, what is your favorite subject to draw? Which I know we've kind of had this question before, but.
Right, but I don't think Zombie Folly has ever asked this question, because I think I'd remember that is a really, really cool name, dude. Or dudette, I'm not sure which. It is the 21st century, so who really knows? Zombies. It's become kind of a running gag in some portions of the gaming industry that if you need a zombie, you just automatically you have Brad on speed dial. I swear. And to give a little bit of a shout out to one of my other clients, anybody who really loves zombie action should probably check out a new game from the company West Postmortem Studios. They have a game coming out called Whitechester, which is one of the nastier concepts, tweaks on the whole idea of zombie survival horror that I've heard in quite some time. Basically, Elizabethan London, England around the year 1660, and zombie apocalypse happens, of course, because you've got to start all these stories somewhere. But the English authorities get the zombie outbreak under control and manage to herd all the zombies into the walled city of Winchester, England, which is a real city, but it was convenient because it had an actual like real wall around it. So they push all the zombies in, lock the gate, and then turn it into a prison for people that have displeased the crown for whatever reason. And guess who you get to play? You get to play the inmates who the authorities have basically shoved through the gate of Whitechester, as they're calling it. And if you survive, well, congratulations, you survived. But you know what? Not our problem if you don't. I think it's a wonderfully nasty idea for a game. And I was extremely flattered when I found this out. The writer actually wrote the game with me in mind for illustrating it. So does that answer your question, Mr. Zombie Folly? And like I said, that's a great name. Okay, anyone else got questions?
Not currently, but Zombie Folly did say that it answered his question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hope you're enjoying the show.
I do see up above his question now. It was hiding behind some stuff, but he did say earlier that your pen and ink textures are super cool, and he's been a fan of you since Nightlife.
Oh, good Lord. I will take that as a very high compliment. That game just refuses to die. Literally, I swear. Well, the gag with the Nightlife is it was about monsters. So yeah, it's a game about monsters that I swear has outlived some of the monsters that it was written about. There we go.
Dread Pirate Robbins asks, any particular types of paper that you prefer for this type of drawing?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm pretty standard. Your basic Strathmore Bristol, 100 pound weight for 20 sheets, easily gotten at any decently stocked art store, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, or whatnot. It's solid, it holds up well, it erases well, and it holds the ink pretty well. So I'm not a big one on experimenting with paper types. I probably should, but again, I just kind of like to stick to what I know at this point. You know, there's for a while there I was experimenting with stuff, but then sometimes, like, you know, the paper would bleed or it wouldn't hold up to an eraser very well, which is a very bad thing, especially if, since, as you can all see, I basically do the picture normally and then just erase. Some people actually like to do their stuff on a light table. I personally find that does not work well for me, except in very rare occasions. There we go. I'm going to make it look like this teddy bear's smile is stitched onto the face there without, like so. Okay, hold on. I'm thinking. I think I need to take just a short mental break from all the heavy duty line work, and I'm just going to work on the sheet here to try and give it a nice because that kind of makes it look like a little bit more like the baby's lying on top of some sort of sheet. There we go. Okay, that's about it for this for the moment. Now let's get back to the teddy bear. There we go. It helps when you're drawing to kind of have a sense of where the light source might be. In this case, the monster is the light source, though you can't really tell that quite yet, per se. I'll be drawing him with a glow around him. I don't think I'm going to get to him tonight before the hour's over. But I'll make sure to have him a copy to show all of you for next week.
So I'm not asking you to show it, obviously, but like, how do you make that glow effect when you draw? Like, can you explain kind of the process of doing that?
Um, a lot of it will be simply that I won't ink too much in like these areas here. Oh, sorry, drink. Okay, if you notice, I kind of have a light area around here. And what I might do also go in with some opaque white paint and just kind of eliminate some further details from there. I just like to try to do it with just the ink shading because there's something kind of annoying about going over spending half an hour inking over an area and then being like, oh great, and I now have to take in my white paint and brush over everything that I just spent half an hour working on. It's kind of frustrating. Excuse me just a moment, folks. Sorry. I was getting a bit dehydrated there.
Zombie Folly asks, on average, about how many pieces do you do a week?
Um, Generally about 3 to 5, depending on the size and complexity of the illustration. Now, like a couple weeks ago, I was working on the Mutant High School fanzine that Goodman Games recently published, and I knocked out all 1, 2, 3. There was about 6 illustrations, and I knocked all 3 of them out in about 4 days. But they were all fairly small illustrations, so they weren't so bad. Now, a half a page illustration like that, this generally will take me about most of a day to get really to a point where I'm happy sending it out the door. There's just a lot of variables otherwise. How excited I am to be working on the job. Oops, sorry. And that can make a huge difference because sometimes you just get jobs where it's like, okay, well, this is going to pay the electric bill. Okay. It gets you enough in the mood to get into the studio and work, but you're not going to like be burning rubber doing that illustration. There we go. Now, this is for Shudder Mountain, which is a subject near and dear to my heart because it's inspired by the writings of 20th century author Manly Wade Wellman. So this is definitely a picture I can get excited about working on. There we go. Okay, where do I want to start from here? There we go. Sorry. Okay, so far so good, guys. Okay, the teddy bear is basically done. So let's work on some of these slats in the background here. The slats are supposed to represent the baby's crib, but simply so you can see what all was going on, I just kind of did like a half crib design. Need to switch pens real fast. Like I said, this is a Shudder Mountain adventure, a brand new one that will be appearing in the DCC yearbook for this coming year. Unfortunately, I can't give you any more information because all the work order included was the page that the illustration will appear on. So I don't even actually know the title of the adventure yet.
So, with 10 minutes remaining, both Joan and Judge Hitmore have told you to do the claws, so it's up to you if you would like to start on those now.
Okay, I can do the claws. I do like doing my horrific claws. I once had a client, after he received his artwork, comment that he would hate to be a pedicurist or manicurist in my universe. Give me just a second. I'll get to the other claws. I just want to finish doing the detail work on its thumb, I think. Okay, there we go. Almost with Flintstone on this poor schmuck. Here we go. Does that work for you guys? One thing I might do on a purely mechanical level to make this thing look a little bit more insubstantial. Ooh, there's your fancy word of the day. I actually have a mechanical screen in Photoshop that is basically will just come through as a bunch of white lines, and I might lay that over the monster to make it look a little bit more hazy. The trick with that is I don't want to make the lines so thick that they start eliminating what you can see of my line work. So there's usually a little bit of trial and error there. There we go. So, any final questions for this week?
Not currently. We're all, thanks to your describing of what this art piece is, we have been discussing a new type of adventure where we're all just toddlers.
Oh, jeez. I think my wife and I made a joke about that one time. We're like, it's like TCC Toddler Crawl Classics. Maybe we can get Brendan to do that for 1,000 Insane Worlds.
Moochie the cat does ask, does the baby survive?
Not a clue. I wouldn't exactly bet the farm on it, though. I mean, all I can figure is the baby does get abducted. I don't think I'm exactly letting out any state secrets from this image. And that's how the player characters get involved, because his parents ask them to help retrieve it. Beyond that, I honestly don't know. Like I said, all I got was a one sheet and a paragraph description of what the art director would like. Alrighty then. I think that's about it, kids. It is 8:58, so I thank you for tuning in. I hope you will tune in next week when I hopefully will be working on that scratch board piece, though I'm not sure yet, depending on what my schedule's like. But I hope I have entertained you. I've maybe given you some insights into the creative process. And don't forget, if you have not yet, to sign up for the drawing at the end of the season. And you may actually end up being the owner of this wonderful piece. So that is about it for this week. And I shall hopefully see you all next Monday.